News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Amy Morris. There's your closing bell for this Thursday on Wall Street, where traders pushed stocks to all-time highs after a solid economic reading. More on that just ahead. But they still held back from making any big moves before tomorrow's inflation data, and that could bring with it more clues on the pace of Fed rate cuts. We do bring you the closing numbers each day here at Bloomberg. The S&P 500 gained 20 points, topping 6501. That is a new record. NASDAQ gained 115 points, just missing a record, and the Dow gained 72 points, landing at 45,636. That's a new record for the Dow. And the U.S. economy rebounded this spring from a first-quarter downturn caused by the fallout from President Trump's tariffs. Bloomberg's Mike McKee.
The basic reason we saw a rise in GDP in the first revision for the second quarter is personal consumption rose to 1.6% from 1.4%, and business investment significantly increased. Non-residential fixed investment up 5.7%. It was 1.9% in the original print.
The first quarter GDP drop was mainly caused by a surge in imports, which are subtracted from GDP as businesses scrambled to bring in foreign goods ahead of Trump's tariffs. That trend reversed as expected in the second quarter. Separate data showed U.S. initial jobless claims edged down last week, suggesting employers are holding on to current workers amid some economic uncertainty. Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook's lawyers suggested that an unintentional clerical error may have been behind the mortgage dispute over which President Trump wants her fired. They filed a lawsuit saying the president's move to fire her is a power grab that could cause, quote, irreparable harm to the economy. Bloomberg's Eric Larson on what the court will be looking for.
This will be the initial thoughts about what this judge thinks about this evidence, whether or not it's very strong, and who could really be harmed here. This all hinges on whether or not the judge agrees which side is going to be harmed the most without an order like this. Cook is arguing the entire economy will be harmed.
The White House responded to the lawsuit, saying that Cook is credibly accused of lying and that the president exercised his lawful authority. The administration is also calling for the Fed to launch its own investigation. Scott Alvarez, former general counsel to the Federal Reserve Board, says it likely won't.
This is really about Lisa Cook's personal activities. That would be something outside the Federal Reserve and the Inspector General's purview. She needs her own personal lawyer because it is about her dispute with the president, not about the Fed's duties or what the Fed is doing itself.
The hearing is set for 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention needs an overhaul, citing a deeply embedded malaise and numerous clerical errors. CDC Director Susan Menares was ousted by the Trump administration after clashing with Kennedy over vaccines, and 3 other top CDC officials resigned in response. Bloomberg Health reporter Madison Muller.
What we know so far is that there was some type of confrontation earlier this week over vaccines and the vaccination schedule, and we've also seen several other senior leaders at the CDC leaving this week as well. So there's sort of this mass exodus happening at the agency right now.
Menares is fighting to hold on to her position. The changes at the CDC could have wide-ranging consequences for public health policy and the pharmaceutical industry. Nvidia gave a revenue forecast of roughly $54 billion for the fiscal third quarter, in line with the average Wall Street estimate. The company's leadership rejecting the notion that interest in deploying AI infrastructure is starting to fade. Chief Financial Officer Colette Kress told investors on the earnings call that the firm continues to push for the sale of Blackwell chips to China.
We continue to advocate for the U.S. government to approve Blackwell for China. Our products are designed and sold for beneficial commercial use.
Nvidia also noted the U.S. government has not yet codified its plan to take a 15% cut of revenue from China AI chip sales, and it acknowledged legal, fiscal, and competitive risks to enacting that policy. The U.S. is ending a long-time exemption that allows parcels worth less than $800 to avoid tariffs. So, starting tomorrow, consumers may encounter surprise bills for tariffs on deliveries. The change is causing chaos with logistics companies, sellers, and postal services. Some postal services are stopping all shipments to the U.S. for now until they can get more clarity on how to handle these new tariffs. The Trump administration has asked a military base outside Chicago for support on immigration operations this week. That's offered a bit of a clue on what an expanded law enforcement crackdown might look like in Chicago. A base spokesman says DHS is asking Naval Station Great Lakes for limited support in the form of facilities, infrastructure, and other logistical needs to support DHS operations. Authorities say a mass Russian drone and missile attack on Ukraine's capital has killed at least 21 people and wounded 48. That attack early this morning on Kyiv was the first major Russian combined attack on Kyiv in weeks, as U.S.-led peace efforts struggle to gain any traction. That's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Amy Morris. This is Bloomberg.